Hello YouTube. So, something interesting happened to me. I got an email from YouTube. And what did the email say? I quote, "We're reaching out to you because members of the community were concerned about some of the comments you've posted on YouTube." Now that certainly sounds interesting. And what was even more interesting is they included a link for me to do a survey. So I clicked on the survey to see what in the world was so concerning. And it only had 2 questions. So first one is they asked me on a scale of 1 to 10 to rank my sentiment toward YouTube. Well, I ranked them as 2 out of 10. And secondly, they asked me, would you like to share more about your response above? That was it. So apparently, somebody in the community has seen my comments about my dislike of YouTube on various places, and so they have me fill that out. Well, here's what I wrote to them about more information about my response of why I gave them a 2 out of 10. What I wrote is, and here's a direct quote, "YouTube is a monopoly that currently uses its power against normal creators for the sake of corporate media. Furthermore, YouTube doesn't allow people to speak against the approved narrative regarding certain topics despite the actual existence of evidence to the contrary, and even stating what those topics are risks a ban. There is absolutely no clarity about what borderline content will get you a strike until after the enforcement, with no genuine chance of an appeal or a path back if you wish to follow the rules after finding out what they are. Even murderers usually get released from jail eventually, but if you break an unwritten rule from YouTube, your account is gone forever with no recourse and no other options out there to use. It's better than Facebook and Twitter, so there is that, but still, more clarity and concern for the normal person instead of corporate accounts would go a long way." And then I added in parentheses, "This survey is a good first step on that second part at least." So that's what I sent. Now, I expected nothing but a bot response, but to YouTube's credit, they actually did give me a response. Granted, it was still mostly a formulaic response, but the person who responded did tell me that, quote, "We aim for neutrality and strive to live up to our core value of freedom of expression, as long as it abides by our community guidelines." They then said that they wanted to hear, quote, "any suggestions that would create a better experience for you on YouTube while keeping safety top of mind," end quote there. I responded, and here's what I said in response directly to this person via email. "You mentioned that you wanted to hear my suggestions about what would create a better experience on YouTube, specifically while keeping safety top of mind. In reality, that touches on one of the problems I have with YouTube. I do not feel safe expressing my views openly on YouTube about virtually any meaningful topic, such as politics or religion. It's difficult to feel safe when you see blatant double standards and no consistency in enforcement. For that reason, on my own channel, I don't even make videos about politics or religion, even though the topics interest me, and I would do so if I felt I would get a fair shake at the way rules are enforced. To give a specific example of what I mean in the political realm, suppose I believe that there is enough questionable events surrounding the 2020 US election as to call into question the legitimacy of the election. For the record, I don't know if there's enough that the final results would have been different, but part of why I don't know that is that I'm not even allowed to investigate whether or not it could be. But suppose for the sake of argument that I firmly believe the election is illegitimate. If I state that belief in a video, my channel would be at risk of a ban. Yet we had 4 years of people promoting the Russia conspiracy about Trump's election in 2016 without any of them being banned. Not only that, but we now have evidence coming out to find the quote used in the second impeachment of Trump, where he was said to have ordered Georgia to, quote, "find the fraud," end quote, turns out to have never been said, yet it was verified by multiple so-called authoritative news sources. Now that the recording of the actual conversation has been unearthed, there's proof these authoritative news sources simply made the quote up, yet none of them are getting guideline strikes. In other words, if I state an opinion, phrased as an opinion, quote, "I believe the election is illegitimate for XYZ reasons," I would get strikes. But corporations who claim something objectively happened, and we are shown that objectively it did not happen, get no strikes at all. Instead, they are used as fact checkers. If you are striving to aim for neutrality, and I take you at your word that you are striving for it, it just seems like you are nowhere near it. The perception may be false, but it's still a genuine perception that I am far more likely to be banned if I say something that is right of center than if I say something that is left of center, even if the position that is left of center is objectively more extreme than the position that is right of center. Now, I'm not advocating that the left should be censored as much as the right is, but rather that the right should be as uncensored as the left is. But in the end, you can choose not to do that. For me, if you came out and said that you weren't neutral, that would be fine so long as I know what the rules actually are. Clearly, I have no problem not making videos about my religious or political views already, but the problem is when you say that you are striving for neutrality and that you want healthy engagement and free speech that is consistent with your community guidelines, and yet you apply the rules in a one-sided manner, I have no way of knowing if a video I make is permitted or not. As far as I remember, I've never received a community guidelines strike. I know several years ago I got a copyright strike on music that I had composed myself, but thankfully the company making the claim dropped it when I contested the claim. But I've had online friends who have received community strikes, and in no cases that they showed me was it clear what the community standard was that was violated. It is impossible to know what they said or did wrong, so it's impossible to correct the behavior other than just not saying anything on the topic at all. You can add in the fact that if I see someone on the left talk about a topic and I assume I can respond from the right, I know that's a great way to lose my channel. Just because someone can talk about a position in opposition to mine doesn't mean I can talk about my position in opposition to theirs without losing my channel. In effect, if I want to do a video about any political topic, I have to ask myself, would the average voter from San Francisco be mad that I said this? And if the answer is yes, which it virtually always is, unless you're to the left of Stalin, then there's no point in making the video. No one needs to ask, would a voter from Salt Lake City be upset that I said this before publishing their videos, because no one cares if it did upset them. That is the problem. So the guy from YouTube then responded that he understood where I was coming from, but, quote, we have a responsibility as a platform to stop the spread of misinformation, end quote. To that I say, really? You have a responsibility to stop the spread of misinformation? No, you have a responsibility as a platform to be a platform and to provide the services you claim you're going to provide. You have a responsibility to your shareholders, I suppose. You have a responsibility to follow the law. You do not have a responsibility to stop the spread of misinformation as if you are the arbiter of what is or is not misinformation to begin with, and as if you are in any way qualified to make that judgment. Just as the church in the time of Galileo presumed it had the responsibility of stopping the misinformation of heliocentrism, YouTube is basing their beliefs on current claims which are contradicted daily by the people in the actual fields. But not only that, YouTube clearly feels no need to stop the misinformation of flat eartherism because you can find thousands of those videos. All they get is a flag at the bottom with a link to Wikipedia. There are millions of videos about self-help that, if you followed them, could seriously harm you or are just objectively wrong, and YouTube does nothing about those videos. No, they only act in a couple of arenas. If you say the wrong thing about COVID, even going so far as to actually quote the CDC's own statistics, you get banned. And if you question the election, you get banned. But you can tell people that motor oil works really well as lawn fertilizer, and your video will remain up. There you go. Now, I didn't say any of that back to the guy from YouTube because I could already tell at that point from the formulaic responses that they really didn't care what my opinion was. But then YouTube banned Steven Crowder when he did not violate their rules, and I couldn't hold my tongue on it. I responded back at that point and informed YouTube, quote, what you're doing to Steven Crowder is proof of your lies. Your company clearly doesn't care at all about allowing voices from the right. They get banned even when following your fascist rules. You guys make me sick, end quote. And it's true. Yes, I wrote that from a state of emotion, but it's genuine. Hypocrisy of all kinds makes me sick. And the fact that someone is trying to be so manipulative and just lies directly to my face does make me sick. I've been in a manipulative and abusive relationship before, and I don't need some Silicon Valley company engaging in narcissistic tactics against me too. The guy from YouTube thanked me for following up with him. And tried to insist, quote, we consistently enforce our policies regardless of political viewpoints, end quote. To which I gave my final response to him. Quote, "You say that, but I watched the video Crowder made about what happened in Nevada, and he never violated your stated guidelines. He never said that the election would have been different based on what he investigated with both the fake addresses used by voters and with the evidence of a former Hillary Clinton campaign worker potentially illegally voting. He was careful to state repeatedly that he was only showing that fraud occurred, not that it was sufficient to overturn the election, and that video is what was removed and what YouTube says is the cause of the strike against him. I don't know what kind of twisted Kafkaesque universe you inhabit, but it's plain to see that you guys completely invented the supposed infraction and then deleted his video to remove the evidence proving it never happened. But deleting a video won't delete the memories of those who actually watched it, especially those of us who watched it knowing your stated policies and knowing that you look for any excuse to crack down on wrongthink. Frankly, I hope Crowder sues your company into bankruptcy, but whether he does or not, know this. No one trusts you, and no one should." End quote. Now look, I have a really small channel. I know that. I was actually amazed that in just a few months, I went from having my first 100 subscribers to today having just under 200. It took me 10 years to get the first 100 and less than a year to get the second. But clearly I don't have a large channel, and I'm not even trying to make it larger. If I was, I certainly wouldn't be producing videos that I enjoy but which get very few likes. If I wanted just views, I could easily just make videos saying Presh Talwalkar is wrong, since that apparently is what most of my audience watches. And by the way, on that topic, let me just say again, I actually really like Presh and only disagree with him on the one video he made. There's no reason for me to just make up videos inventing disagreement with him for the sake of views. I don't care about views that much. I do videos that interest me about topics that interest me. Well, except that's not really true, is it? I already mentioned that I tend to avoid videos on religion and politics because the main reason I started my channel was actually as a place to post my music. That's it. That's the main goal, nothing further. And I don't want to lose those videos simply to be free to talk about a political viewpoint. So, YouTube's already won. They've already suppressed my voice. This is going to be my one video complaining about it. They may or may not ban this video, who knows? As far as I know, I have been completely within the guidelines YouTube demands, but clearly that doesn't matter. If they want to convict me, they will invent the crime. So who knows how much longer I will be on this platform. I certainly can't in good conscience give them money via advertising, but they're the only game in town, and they know it. We know it. Let's not play make-believe. This is a monopoly that needs to be destroyed. With genuine competition, YouTube could be brilliant again. But it's not going to happen. And someday, the cesspool it has become will rot away the last shred of dignity from the platform, and it will be no more. Future generations will look back on social media like we do the Roman Colosseum, wondering how people could have been so wicked to get entertainment out of that. Well, maybe we should stop judging the Roman citizens of the past until after we correct our social media failures of today. With that, peace out and have a good day. There's more to life, way more to life than YouTube.